beautiful people out there, it's Marie from the 2016 design team. If you're anything like me, when you're digging through and looking at your different products, a lot of times you may go, what else can I do with this? I'm like that a lot when working with ICE resin. I really don't like to be limited by, you're supposed to do it this way or you're supposed to do it that way. Who says? So, today I'm going to show you a different way to use your iced enamels. We are going to melt these babies in the ice resin while it's still wet and create a really cool new look. So grab some reliqued powders, grab a beautiful new ice resin Milan bezel if you happen to have one. If you don't, grab whatever you have on hand. Get some ice resin, some mixing cups, stir sticks, a brush to paint it on with, and a small butane torch. A no-stick craft sheet, that helps a lot, and ice resin just happens to have some just the right size. So get all that, come back with me, and let's have some fun.
At the end of this video, you will see examples where I put relique powders into wet resin that both already had powders on the bezels, along with an example that did not. I created several designs for a variety of tastes to show the versatility of this technique. For the purpose of the Mardi Gras music-themed ceiling fan pull that I created for the project, I started out with a blank bezel and then painted some Snowcap alcohol ink mixative onto the surface and dried it to use as the base coat. I mixed up a small amount of ice resin according to package instructions and then applied a thin coat to the back of the bezel, making sure to cover the entire surface. I then used an ice resin stir stick to lightly scatter the relique powders onto the surface of the resin. Once I have the coverage I like, I very quickly let the tip of a butane torch flame kiss the powders. You don't want to be really close or stay in one area too long. Think to yourself a feather touch when you do this technique on a bezel. I'm going to carefully turn the wet bezel over onto the nonstick craft sheet. If you'd like a really glossy surface, I recommend doing the front and back at 2 different times, or you can turn it over as I've done and then come back once your piece is dried and pour a doming layer onto the back. If you like the faint texture from the surface of the craft sheet, then as long as you're careful and don't smear things badly, you can do all of this in one pour. I repeat the same process on the front of the bezel. I'll zoom in really close so that you can see the powders melting onto the wet surface and kind of floating within it. Though I was pretty messy with this particular bezel, I do recommend trying to be neater because it will give you less cleanup once the resin dries. Doing one side at a time really helps with this. Here's an example of what distress powders look like when done this way, and what Windy Vecchi embossing powders look like. Both of these are from Ranger. This is my poetry-inspired pull. You saw the bezel with the powders before I had finished decorating it. I love how by using the distress powders, I was able to get a really grungy texture within the resin. It feels grungy, but not scratchy when you pick it up. This is the one I used 2 different shades of Windy Vecchi embossing powder on. It's almost like a pulled sugar candy on the surface. It's the same technique, but it's 2 entirely different looks. For this one, I used the glitz powders on top of the blank bezel, and it's like stardust is floating just above the surface. After the resin dried, I used a silver wax to buff the edges, which ended up giving this amethyst butterfly pull a very stunning antiqued look. The technique wasn't used on this pair of Baroque-inspired pulls. I just created them as an example of the many styles the versatile Milan bezels can be used for creating something like this. I wish you could see the color dancing in the resin from combining the German glass glitter with crumbs of various jeweled tones of leafing. It's pretty breathtaking. This is my second favorite of the group. You might recognize the bezel from a previous team project. I ended up just using one on the handle of the purse. By adding a sari ribbon tassel and wrapping some brass wire strung with seed beads, it's a simple but fanciful pull. This is one of the older bezels, but as you can see, they look great for creating something like this as well. So if you have someone on hand, go ahead and use them too. And this is the finished Mardi Gras music themed one that is a step out tutorial on the blog. The confetti color buffed with some copper wax on the edges gives it a really festive look.
I love the way the relique powders just melt into the resin whenever you hit them with that slight flame. It's like magic. It's like, I don't know, it's just beautiful. I could just watch it for hours and hours, just kind of melting and sinking into it. And don't be afraid to stop there. You know, once you figure out just the right way to hold everything, go in with a toothpick or something after it's melted and stir it around and notice how there's that film on the top from where the relique powders have melted, and see what you can do with it. Make it your own and just have fun experimenting. I think that's one of the great things about having products as great as ICE Resin and the other Ranger products is that you can experiment until your heart's content, and you can really make each and every different creation you make something new and unique and fun and a part of you. So if you would like to see more of how I do that while chasing my own little artistic daydreams, head on over to my blog at www.fromthebreathofdaydreams.com. Or you can go to ICE Resin's ICE Queen E-Zine at www.iceresin.com and see more projects from the current design team and design team members in the past. And of course, over at www.rangerinc.com, you can find all of the supplies that you need to make your ICE Resin dreams come true. Until next time, may your muse shine brightly and keep on creating fun stuff.